Nothing is sure but death and taxes. It's a famous saying that's been quoted throughout history. Benjamin Franklin, for example, wrote it in a letter. He isn't credited as the first to say it, but what does that phrase mean? Taxes will always be certain. They're impossible to avoid in the United States. If you're going to the grocery store, if you live in a house, if you have a job, you're going to be paying taxes. All aspects of life are taxed. You have to work for several months of the year to just pay your taxes. Your individual income taxes are going to be the biggest chunk of that, as well as payroll taxes, things like Social Security. And sales and excise taxes. Excise taxes are taxes on things that could possibly kill you, like sugar and cigarettes and alcohol and things like that are considered excise or sin taxes, is the nickname for that. A sales tax, you buy a t-shirt at, I don't know where you shop, Forever 21, maybe. You pay a tax. The other taxes could include things like if you go across the Golden Gate Bridge, it's $7, I believe. I don't know. I have it attached to my license plate, but I think it's about that much. That's considered a tax. Property tax is a tax on your house, and your corporate income tax would be a tax on corporations in the United States. So put on your thinking cap, and what do taxes pay for? Think for a minute. They pay for national defense, which we spend the biggest chunk of our discretionary revenue on in the United States. It's very expensive, billions of dollars. Last year was almost $700 billion. Criminal justice, paying salaries for those in the system, prosecutors and judges and public defenders, and those cool gavels. Infrastructure, bridges and tunnels and all those things that none of us are going to pay for unless it comes out of our paycheck directly. I can't pay for all that concrete by myself, but I want to use the road, so we do it together with taxes. The public welfare, things like Medicare and Medicaid, healthcare for low-income and elderly individuals. Public services like schools and libraries and all those great things that are good for the collective benefit. Adam Smith's fundamental economic work, The Wealth of Nations, lays out 4 tax maxims, 4 major principles for a nation in terms of a system of tax that the United States pretty much falls in line with. Equity. Adam Smith thought that since the wealthy were faring better and getting more from the government, they should pay more. As you know, we have a progressive tax where the more you make, the more you pay. You'll fall into a certain tax bracket. Certainty. We should know what we're going to pay. There's a tax schedule that's published for every fiscal year. And someone's not going to come around to your door, a tax collector, and ask for a tax that you didn't know about. It's very certain. It's convenient. You don't have to wait in a super long line with everyone else in the United States to pay your taxes. Nowadays, we can do it online or mail it in, or go to someone who can send it in for us. And efficient. The government shouldn't take more than they need, and they should use the funds wisely. Thinking of Smith's idea of equity, it doesn't just relate to the progressive tax. The ability to pay principle is that those who can afford luxury items can pay an extra tax on them. It's a choice, and you have more disposable income to spend and therefore can afford the tax. The benefits received principle would be that those that are using a system are the ones paying into it, and that's where those bridge tolls come into play. Tax incidence is the idea that consumers and producers share the tax burden, and it depends on the situation who's going to be paying more of that burden. For example, hotels often pay a tax to the cities and states that they operate in. For example, a place like Las Vegas makes a lot of revenue on taxing not only their gambling, but the hotels because everyone's from somewhere else, everyone's visiting. Um, Hotels, if they want to encourage people to come, they might take more of the burden and lower their prices, or they may raise their prices and put the burden on the customer. That's the tax incidence. A deadweight loss would be that the tax makes it not worth it for someone to actually do a job. Say you're unemployed and you're looking for work and it has a lot of overtime pay, which seems like an incentive. However, it's taxed so heavily that you decide not to take the job, and then that's considered a deadweight loss to our economy because you're not working, you're not producing, the government's not benefiting, no one benefits when people are unemployed. And when you are employed, eventually, most likely you'll get a W-2 from your employer, which is the statement of how much you made in a year and how much you paid in taxes. And you use your W-2 to fill out your taxes every year. And it is pretty easy, especially with the new technologies on the internet. You just type it all in. If you have a more complicated income, or you own a lot of property, something like that, you might choose to go to an accountant to help you do that.